A parliamentary committee in Britain says former Prime Minister Boris Johnson deliberately misled MPs about parties held during the COVID-19 lockdown. Johnson resigned as an MP last week after seeing an advance copy of the highly critical report. Sonia Gallego reports from London.
There was no way of sugarcoating the news.
Is this the end, Mr. Johnson?
After months of inquiry, it was a searing indictment of Boris Johnson's behaviour while Prime Minister and of his conduct while being investigated by the House of Commons Privileges Committee. It was not just the illegal parties held at Downing Street whilst the country was in lockdown. The committee found that Johnson repeatedly committed contempt and sought to undermine the parliamentary process by deliberately misleading the House, deliberately misleading the committee, breaching confidence, impugning the committee and thereby undermining the democratic process of the House, and being complicit in the campaign of abuse and attempted intimidation of the committee. The report also recommended a 90-day suspension, the second longest such punishment ever for a Member of Parliament. While Johnson preempted that with his resignation on Friday, opposition politicians say it is not enough.
A decent public servant would have done the honourable thing, would have had a little bit of humility and would have apologised to the British public for what they put them through.
The report's conclusions leave very few options for Mr Johnson to continue in a political career. The report even suggests that he have his parliamentary pass revoked. But there are still his cheerleaders who are determined to see him one more time.
I don't think you can ever write off Boris Johnson. He's one of the great titans of British politics and world politics. And of course, he left this house once before, did a great job as London mayor, and he really is the king of comebacks. MPs
will vote on Monday whether to approve the report. And the results are likely to further inflame tensions in the ruling Conservative Party. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has not yet indicated whether he will be taking part in the vote. But he will be eager to draw a line under the scandal that's cost the Conservatives public support, as well as the influence of a political friend turned foe who cast a long divisive shadow during his time in office and in the months afterwards. Sonia Gallego, Al Jazeera, London.
Mo Hussein is a Conservative Party special advisor. He was chief press officer at 10 Downing Street during Prime Minister David Cameron's government and joins us now from our studio in London. Great to have you with us. What do you think, first of all, of this report and its findings?
Well, it's been a long time in the coming, and it's looked at lots of evidence and spent nearly 1.5 years doing so. It's not surprising to me what the report has found, because the issue, I think, has always been this very meandering messaging and line from Downing Street, where initially we were told there's nothing to see here, there were no parties, no rules were broken, and then suddenly here we are, several investigations later, and crucially over 100 police fines later as well. So I'm not surprised. It's a cross-party committee in terms of what they have found, and they have pieced this together, and they've looked for the inconsistencies in what the former Prime Minister said under oath or in Parliament, and what the people around him who they've spoken to said.
Boris Johnson has slammed it as lies, that is all made up. Who else supports him in that view?
There is a small group of MPs who are die-hard Johnsonites, let's say, within the Conservative Party, who are very loyal to him, and they have been out on the airwaves today, and they have been quite active in discrediting this committee and already making clear what they think of the findings, and they've been doing that for a few months. Some of them were awarded honours last week by Boris Johnson, but they have been either on the Brexit wing of the party and know him from then, or elevated by him in key ministerial positions. But then there's also a group who we haven't heard very much from, of MPs who came into Parliament in 2019, and he did have a huge success in 2019. He won in parts of the UK that a Conservative leader has not won in some cases for about a century or so. So they will be weighing up what they do on Monday when we have this parliamentary vote. Do they abstain? Do they vote against him and go with their conscience? Or do they think about winning their seats and the support that he may still have, which I do think is slightly overplayed, but he may still have in the parts of the country they represent?
Well, that'll be interesting, won't there? Because there will be a number of by-elections coming up now due to his resignation and a couple of other supporters. With Labour and the Lib Dems snapping at their heels, do you think the Tory party's in trouble?
Yes, and I think it has been in trouble for quite a long time. This whole episode, going back nearly 2 years now, has done a huge damage to the Conservative Party, the government, the office of the Prime Minister. And the fact that it was so badly handled and badly communicated, there wasn't any contrition or humility very early on. In fact, there was just different version of events and different accounts we were being told, it felt like on a weekly basis, has all chipped away at public trust and credibility. And the current Prime Minister, Prime Minister Sunak, I think has been trying to rebuild that and do things on his own terms, but he is constantly being haunted by the ghosts of Prime Ministers past. This is taking up so much time and energy and oxygen within the UK and beyond, that trying to move on with the domestic agenda and trying to showcase to the voters what his offer is very difficult for him to do.
OK, Mo Hussein, fantastic to speak to you. Thanks very much for joining us there from England.
Thank you.